Hello, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful episode of Gemini Rising. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Anne Wilkie.
Hello.
And today's guest is astrologer Alex Skiles. And we are so thrilled to have Alex on the show. If you are a Highvibe member, you already know who Alex is. If you're not, you're about to discover what a wonderful astrologer he is. And Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice intro.
Well, we are so excited to have you here, and we were hoping it was going to be a couple of weeks ago. Scheduling came up, unfortunately. So before we just dive into the astrology, because there is so much, what have you been up to since you left Highvibe?
Well, all of last year, I've been running this studio and, I'm producing a lot of different artists. And last year, it was like, I'm going to do a horoscope every single day, blah, blah, blah. And that was awesome. I loved doing it. But the work got so crazy on the music side of stuff, where it was like, by the end of the year, I had some serious health issues coming up when Mars went retrograde on my Jupiter, all this kind of stuff. So I do a lot of production work, and a lot of stuff has really kind of taken shape in my life with that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how to balance the astrology. And I think, to me, what I'm really excited about focusing on is the classes. I launched a one-on-one back in February. I had my first 12 students. And that really helped me realize what I really want to do with astrology. I love making content and I love connecting with people. And I'm trying to find a more unique way of doing that. And I also am more interested with, doing lives with people like you guys, instead of being in, our own echo chamber of just, doing a video by ourselves. I think this is so much more beneficial and effective, and it inspires me more too. I'm more creatively inspired by working with other people. So that's what I'm really focusing on. And, it's been a wild ride. It's been over a year now, a year and a half almost, since I was there with Highvibe with you guys.
Yeah. So one of the things that that has happened since we last saw you is, back in January, your life fundamentally changed because of the fire in LA.
So, my family,
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. And, of course, I'm interested also if you've thought since then about the astrology of why it affected your family.
Yeah, I mean, my South Node is 24 Cancer, and I have Chiron 24 Cancer, and that's where Mars was retrograding at the time. And my family, my children, I have 2 children, and their grandmother owns a home in Malibu that was burnt down. And when our first child was being born, we lived there. We had our first child there. A lot of amazing memories there. And it's just, it was very Uranian too. It just shook everything up like a snow globe, or a firestorm for that matter, literally. It's just put a lot of pressure on a lot of people's lives here in LA. But it's wild. It's really, really wild. And astrologically, for me personally, Chiron has been squaring my Chiron. I've been going through a Chiron square, which we all have, when we're 33, 34. So a lot of it. And it also, this brings up too, of childhood stuff. That's really what's been coming up for me too. There's a lot of the buried things that I've personally, from my own experience in my childhood, and the cancer stuff and the motherly stuff. And it's brought a lot of that up. Where I'm such an Aries person, where I just go, 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 and I don't look back. And I think people who really know me personally know that about me, and that's a really good quality. But also, when it gets to moments like this, it's like, holy shit, like I really wasn't piecing certain things together, that now cataclysmic moments like this really put things into extreme perspective with such an extreme scenario. And I guess that's really what we could say about the astrology too. It's just, it's so extreme. It's getting more extreme, and it's been extreme. In that whole period with Mars and Venus retrograding was probably one of the most extreme experiences I've had. And it's not only until this new moon that we had yesterday, and Uranus finally starting to get out of Taurus, where it's like, holy shit, like things are starting to finally change, and things popping up out of nowhere, things from the past that, you know, I've been waiting on personally. And I think a lot of people are going to be feeling this and experiencing this over the next 3 months, specifically with Jupiter coming into Cancer and Uranus coming into Gemini. It's just, this was the moment. It really was this new moon where I'm noticing, not just in my own life, but people around me, where it's like a weight kind of coming off, and this new energy. It's youthful. We've been in such Pluto, Capricorn, Neptune, and Pisces energy for so long, and I haven't even thought about that, honestly. I watched David's horoscope, and he was talking about how long we've been in. I have honestly haven't even thought about that. I'm like, wow, that's completely over. You know, the Uranus, the Neptune thing that we went through in the 2000s after Uranus came out of Pisces with that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, and then Neptune came right into Pisces too, and then with Pluto and Capricorn. So it's like we haven't even felt this, we haven't seen it. I said the other day, I was having a chat with a friend who's an astrologer, and she was showing me all kinds of cool stuff that she's getting into with astrology, Uranian astrology. She was showing me, which I know nothing about, which I was blown away by. I was saying to myself, actually, no, I was saying it out loud. I was like, I'm having a novel experience right now. And I can't tell you the last time where I've truly had a novel experience, like a child. I've been feeling that a lot lately. Yeah. So I think that's just really, really, to me, where I'm the most excited is that new youthful energy coming in.
Over the weekend, we had Saturn move into Aries. Neptune is already there. Both are going to retrograde back into Pisces for a few months before they come in. And early next year, we have that exact conjunction at 0 degrees. What are your thoughts? I mean, this kind of expands into a much larger question, but you're in Aries. Your birthday is a day after mine.
Yep.
Anne is a Libra, so she's exactly opposite us on the astrological wheel. It depends on which astrologer I listen to as to their thoughts, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Saturn is at detriment in Aries. How do you think this is going to go? I guess for us personally, just to be a little bit selfish and talk about that as Aries.
Go, please.
For Anne being on the opposite side, because that means all of these planets at some point are going to oppose her sun, and also for the collective, because these are big shifts that we're going through.
And I must say, my moon is right at the beginning of Libra, so Saturn would be opposing my moon right away too.
What degree?
3.
Okay. Jupiter's coming there too as well. Yep. Well, I think for me, like personally, and I think back to 96 and 97 was the most defining moment. And of course, with Aries, it's all about definition. And that truly was the most defining era of, I guess I can't say era, but what really has shaped me. You know, that was when my mom passed away, the whole thing. And her Saturn was 20 degrees of Aries with her North Node. The day she passed, Saturn was at 20 degrees. And like this whole thing, I'm like, that's what I've been thinking about lately. I'm like, wow, that's what I'm stepping back into personally. And I think as well, when I look at Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn and all the stuff going on in the world and all the things that are, it's just wild how rapidly things are changing. And what I'm seeing is that even myself, I could honestly say I was under the Neptunian spell in many ways. When I look back to 2011 and 2012, you know, how music and art changed. You know, I was not into heavy music anymore. It totally turned into this very Piscean psychedelic experience. I think a lot of people were experiencing at that time. It was like a flip of a switch. And I don't think anybody was really looking at Pluto and Capricorn until the very end. And then with Neptune and Pluto and Capricorn, you know, coming into new signs at the same time, it's like, wow, we really have been asleep. And the programming culturally and across the world, and the deception is really starting to show itself. And it's like the only people right now who are really seeming to have any headway of speaking any truth. Other people like who are taking a sledgehammer or a chainsaw to the whole situation, and it's just like, F it, you know. And I look at the whole Kanye situation on X right now, and people are like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. But that's kind of it right now. He's kind of taking a sledgehammer to the whole thing. And I see that too in my own life of like, holy, I fell for this. I fell for that. Because I fell for that, it led me into this situation. And damn, I need to look at that a little differently where, you know, it's not just, oh, it's all going to fall into place. And I think that's what it was, you know, Neptune and Pisces era, where it was like, just manifest, just let it happen. Just it's you know, that whole thing. I just really don't think what we're stepping into, it's not going to be that way anymore. It's going to be about the full just expression of your identity and who you truly are and how you can convey your own truth, you know. And I think too, like Neptune and Aries, I don't want to go too Neptune about it, but it's like spiritual warfare and also the spiritual warrior, you know, not the hippie anymore. It's not about the Neptune Pisces hippie thing. You know, it's more about, holy shit, like I got to really stand up for myself and, you know, fight these battles with honesty and, you know, a true connection to spirit and not get lost in the sauce. Cause I really can see, you know, collectively we've been lost in the sauce, and a lot of the things that are coming up and coming to the surface now is just like shocking for people, where people can't even like, there's the people now who are super excited of this massive shift. And there are people now who are just like, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it, you know. Mm-hmm. And with Uranus coming into Gemini here, it's like, we're preparing for a whole new situation. So it's just it's a call for people to stand up and acknowledge that stuff. And I'm acknowledging that in my own life too. Of like, wow, there's a lot that we really fell for. So.
I have to just ask a follow-up question, because you brought up music, and that music kind of shifted around 2012, all of that. So the interesting thing is that, like we've already talked about, Saturday, Saturn moved into Aries, Neptune's already there. But last night, the AMAs were happening. Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware, but right before we did this show, I was watching a video and it randomly came up that the AMAs were on. J-Lo was apparently hosting. She was kissing all her dancers, but it hasn't gone down as this controversial, crazy moment. People are going, what are you doing? This was done 100 years ago. But the other thing that happened was, and I didn't know this, the AMAs didn't happen for the last 2 years. They've just brought them back, trying to reimagine, get people back and really push commercial music. But the interesting thing is there were no big headliners. Apparently there were 8 or 10 album of the year people that were nominated. None of them showed up. Mm-hmm. They only publicly showed 6 awards being given out because recipients just weren't there and they were accepting via video chat. And the only performers that they had apart from J-Lo apparently were legacy acts, so Rod Stewart and Janet Jackson versus current talent. And mm-hmm. I was listening to this, and I've been saying for a long time that in 2020, celebrity culture started to die, and especially when people were forced into lockdown and we had this grandstanding that was going on.
Yep.
But do you think this is sort of the culmination of that and it's just going to continue? I just found it so interesting that you brought up music and then.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this because the music that happened in 96 and 97, 98 is some of my favorite shit. Still, like I love heavy music. I grew up listening to heavy music. At that time, it was Korn and Limp Bizkit and MTV. It just Blink-182 showed up. Like punk rock it was just full on Aries energy. And I think when I look at 2011 in the music industry, and definitely by 2008 when Pluto came into Capricorn, where it was like the music industry, even the political era and vibe at that time, you know, the Yes We Can vibe, they really, really, really thought they had it on lockdown. They really thought we're good. People are only going to see what they see on the screen, and all the other stuff, like we're good. We're protected. that's not the case. And it's completely not the case. And yeah, I think the whole Diddy thing, the whole Epstein thing, and all these people, that's all connected to that too. And I saw something yesterday and I got so inspired. Actually, like I said, I've been having like novel feelings and novel experiences randomly, more so than ever. And I don't know if you remember that a band from the 2000s, All American Rejects. Do you remember them?
Mhm.
They had some big songs. They're a good band. And they were on hiatus for 10 years. And I looked at the singer's chart too. He's got lots of Aries in his chart. I think he had some 0 degrees Aries in his chart, actually, which was really interesting because this past week, they said, we're not going to do a tour in arenas. We're going to show up on college campuses and we're going to make our comeback after a 10-year hiatus and just show up on college campuses. And they did their first run last week, and I'm seeing all the clips, and they're going viral on the internet, which I never thought they would make a comeback. It's the last band I thought they would make a comeback. But I'm like, and they're not even my favorite band. I think they had some good songs, but I'm watching these clips that are going viral. I'm like, this is what's got to happen. This right here, just it's them in a front yard on a college campus singing some of the biggest hit rock songs of the 2000s. And it's just like kids on the roof, and the cops broke it down. And it was so exciting to see that and to see the comments and how people are responding to it. I'm like, this is it. This is the energy when it comes to what music is going to be and how people are going to connect to it. This is what happened in 96 and 97 when it was alternative music and whatever. Then it just became like Marilyn Manson and Korn and blah, 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 you know? So that to me is just the most exciting thing. And people just saying, screw it. We're not going to do what the corporations want us to do. We're just going to go do our own thing, no matter how much of a following we have, how rich we are, you know? So that's really the coolest thing that I've noticed. And yeah, anyway, I can go on and about the Pluto, Capricorn, and Neptune and Pisces situation, but it's all getting exposed, and it wasn't real. It wasn't real. The music wasn't real. The music isn't even real.
Well, the music wasn't real. The movies weren't really. I mean, they are obviously.
Dune was good. I like Dune and Blade Runner.
But it's like everything. It really is like what you said. It's as if all sorts of Hollywood or entertainment industry people all thought, okay, we've got the formula now. Yep. We know how to do this. We're just going to keep replicating it. I mean, this is actually also something that goes back to my theory days of thinking about this advanced stage of capitalism where it's just replicating the same thing over and over and over again. And always what I think is interesting about theories like that is it doesn't take into account people and how we actually, why is it that the people running the industries feel that we're going to just buy whatever comes out, right? That, yeah, we just want copies. How do they have it? So they spend so much time also trying to make us dumber. So we'll want to buy all those things, or so we'll want to consume it. I just think it's so fascinating that there's this, and it's not so if you happen to be a band like All American Rejects and you decide, wait a second, we're just going to pivot. We're going to do something completely different. And that will start something new. It's about time that starts to happen, you know, like just like you're saying. And I wanted to go to a video that you sent me, what was it, a week ago or so? You sent me this Jeffrey Wolf Green video.
Yeah.
And I
can't wait.
I think that he must have recorded it around the time of when you were born, right?
That was in 91. Well, Pluto was in Sag. I was born in 91. So if you listen to the lecture, he's talking about Pluto and Sag at the time.
Okay.
I think it was 95, 96.
But he's talking about this era in which Uranus and Neptune and Saturn were all in Capricorn, right?
I was born with that, yeah. Or, okay, 1990, Saturn, in 89 and 90 was Saturn with Neptune and Uranus. I was born in 91. Which Saturn just moved into Aquarius.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Natalie, for going off on this. I'm trying to summarize what he says, but he talks about that particular configuration and what it was going to do at that time, and how it's helping to break down the Capricornian way of being, going all the way back, like to patriarchy starting, right? But I really like this imagery that he gave, where he said it was like Capricorn's like a steel box, and Uranus in there is like this bomb that keeps going off. And then you've also got Neptune. I can't remember exactly what he said about that, but that was all just disrupting the structure. And so you are someone born with that energy. Do you feel like now is the time where you're really igniting?
Yes, and not only was I born with that, my sun squares Uranus. I have sun square Uranus in my chart. So no matter what, especially like someone like Elon has sun square Uranus. The chainsaw that the Argentinian president gave him, that's to me a good description of sun square Uranus. And that the willingness to just crush it and restart and rebuild and, you know, go against the grain completely, even if it hurts, because the outcome usually is better in the long run, you know. Also, there's the risk involved with the, you know, the sun square Uranus. But yeah, I do feel that. And I feel it not only in the music world. I've been in the music industry for 20 years. My career started in 2005 and I haven't stopped. Like, and, you know, I've been studying astrology for a little over that amount of time. And I think in the astrology, I'll say this. I just got off the phone. I got on this live with you guys and I said this. I don't have a hit song, right? I've done a lot in the music industry. I've toured with some of the biggest bands in the world. Like, I've done a lot of awesome stuff that I'm really grateful for. And when we were 17, the band I was in, we were getting offered a record deal with Atlantic. We had big producers in my living room, literally, before we were out of high, like, you know, and it didn't work out. You know, it didn't work out as me being a front man and a singer and, you know, as, you know, getting a record deal with Atlantic Records. A lot of shit went south. And I was talking right now because things that I'm going through right now, like I'm on the cusp of something really, really cool. And there's one particular thing that I'm doing that I can't really talk about. That's actually pretty massive. Like with an artist that every person watching this knows. And I was talking to my partner, my business partner, and I was like, I am so glad we did not become successful the past 15 years. And that this is the time to be successful. This is the time I would want to be successful in the work that I'm doing. You know what I mean? It makes sense now. Because if I would have got a record deal in 2010, I would be a part of that system. And I would be probably going down with it right now, instead of being a part of crushing it and coming out saying, all right, here's the new way. We're all going to go this way now. You know, like the All-American region or Kanye. I hate to say it, whatever you think about Kanye, I don't care. Like, that's another good description of what this is, what this energy is. And whenever people are like, oh, I'm so punk rock, I'm punk, this is the definition of punk rock to me. Truly.
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating what you're saying, because I think back to my career as you're talking, and you're in music. I was obviously in fashion. And in Australia, I worked full time my entire adult life as a model, and I did incredible jobs and work. And when I was moving over here, I had to really go through my career, and I obviously had to prove who I was and what I had done. And there's so much that you forget. And when you go through it, you're like, wow, I really did so much. But there were other opportunities that for me came so close, you know, certain jobs that the payday was insane, and it was me. And then at the last minute, something switched and it wasn't for whatever reason. And there were a few hosting gigs on TV that I was devastated that I didn't get. And I remember there was this one girl who, she really screwed me over. She was a piece of work. But all these things that didn't come to fruition, and I was devastated about. And I look at where I am now and what's in front of me, even though I'm over 40, all of this, I am so grateful. And not only grateful at the opportunities, because I think there's more depth, there's more scope for where I can go and the good I can do for this world. Whereas if it happened to me when I was 20, I too would have been a part of the system. I think about how I possibly could have been taken advantage of. Moving to LA is a big thing. There are so many predators here. And I've had a few people try to pull some shit on me, and I've stood up and gone, thank you. You've got the wrong woman, and walked out. And you're never going to work in this town. This isn't going to happen. I'm like, no, I'm good. And if it doesn't work for me, totally fine, because I'm still not this woman. And I look at it all now and go, it was all preparing me for this. Whereas if it all happened when I was 20, I don't know where I would have ended up and with what people I would have been involved with and how it all would have played out. And I think that's a really exciting thing, that it feels, regardless of age, regardless of where you are, it now feels to me like there's infinite possibilities.
We made it. We made it. We actually made it. We were the ones who actually made it. We made it through.
Even though there are some astrologers that with these current transits, it's all doom and gloom. And I'm like, I don't feel that. And I know that the energy shifts and we have to adjust because there always is that adjustment. And Anne and I have been texting over the last few days. I don't know if this is Saturn in Aries, but my boyfriend last night even brought up something similar, not knowing about the conversation Anne and I had about people on the road. It is like everybody is oblivious. And people are just pulling in front of you with no awareness of what's going on. And if you do manage to get past them or next to them, you can see there is absolutely nothing going on. Is that a Saturn in Aries thing? Because why has this just started in the last sort of...
Well, it's always been. It has always been. But it's like a new level of chaotic. And also what I was noticing are these pedestrians. To me, it's just like being in a minefield all of a sudden of you don't know who's jumping out. And then people in neighborhoods, like I was going through just a neighborhood where the speed limit's either 35 or 40. And this guy was just barreling down the road, coming the opposite way, and decided I don't know what his deal was, but he didn't realize someone was turning left. And he had to swerve around it and almost killed all of us.
Oh my gosh.
There's a clump of cars there and pedestrians around. It's a little nuts.
Be safe out there.
Yes.
Wow.
Is this an astrological thing though, or is it just humanity becoming unhinged?
I think both. Definitely both. I mean, yeah, you can narrow it down to that, but I think when we look at Mars too, Mars is, fully out of its shadow. I feel like too. I'll go back to the Mars retrograde. I hate Mars retrogrades. They're the worst. They literally are the worst. Venus retrogrades, I could deal with it, but Mars retrograde, as an Aries and as a male person, as a man, I'll say that. Not a male person. I'm a man.
You're a male identified as a man.
Exactly. None of that. That's gone too. Well, that's another part of it. But the identity crisis, but I think too, Mars fully going full blast and getting some good energy from Venus, and it's going to square Uranus soon. Square to Uranus is building, like it's tightening up this weekend. So I think if there's any time to be extra cautious on the road, it's over the next couple weeks as Mars is getting ready to square Uranus. That's unpredictable, volatile energy too, and this goes back to the Mars-Uranus conjunction last July when, the Trump assassination happened. It's going to bring that up again. So yeah, definitely astrologically currently, I would be playing it pretty safe. My grandmother, who I love so much, she always taught me to drive defensively, like look out for other people first, sorry, I dropped that bomb. But like 3 car lengths away, look out for everybody else. Because with Aries energy, it's like, it's everybody else's fault. So and you're the Libra, so you're the one coming through here. Where I love how you brought it to the people. You brought the perspective to the people whenever you were giving us.
I can't help it. With the Gemini rising, and we're having our show with Gemini rising, or with not Gemini rising, but the Gemini moon and sun. So
and Mercury now here. Finally.
I wanted to ask, is it next month that we have Uranus moving into Gemini? Is it next
June.
month or is it? Okay, so it's soon.
Is it June?
We're in May at the moment, so
Jupiter's coming into Cancer in June.
Okay.
I don't
So
remember. Let me
Uranus
look it
is-
up. Let me
Uranus-
find it real quick.
Then it must be July. I feel like July 7th for some reason.
Yeah, I can't do it off the top of my head. I forgot. Let's remind ourselves here. What day? Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Well, meanwhile,
Okay.
I can talk about
Okay,
how
so
for some
Woke One
reason,
Revolution is
Yeah,
saying
it's July 7th. You were right.
Okay. So with that happening, again, I'm going to be very selfish. My moon and my rising is obviously there, but how do you see Uranus coming into Gemini affecting the collective? How is it going to be for me hitting my ascendant and my moon?
Yeah, I mean, this is every great American war, at least as we know, that has shaped the world. World War I or World War II was a big one. I mean, that's shaped the modern world completely. And of course, a lot of the massive political things too, like it's all connected. It's all synced. I think we're going to see massive shifts of the political narrative that was formed in the 40s after, during World War II and after World War II, and the propaganda. I don't have to go into details about it because I don't want to start that whole thing, but I think there's going to be sudden shifts and changes with that, across the whole scheme. And we can already see it taking shape, but we've been in Uranus and Taurus. So, we're still trying to move through that. But I really think collectively, when it comes to how we're sharing information, Pluto's going to be trining that. That's going to be amazing. I'm excited for that when Pluto and Uranus trine over, through the next couple of years. That's going to be really exciting. And we're going to see technology change so rapidly. I mean, with AI, and I use AI almost for everything now. I rely on it. It's becoming so, I don't use Google anymore. I'm using AI. And I think too, like if that big, beautiful bill that Trump just passed last week, there's all the AI stuff inside of it. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but that is like, whoa. It's almost like they're, I don't know. There's so much in there that they're trying to transform actual physical parts of our government that relies on humans actually being present to change some of those things. And in that bill, it's pretty clear about that. So it's like, man, where's human beings going to exist in the scheme of what that old Capricorn system is? And I think that is going to shock a lot of people, where it's going to, it's more about, like we're talking about with Neptune and Saturn and Aries. This is an opportunity to fully identify like what you are and what you want to do with it, and actually, take that and run with it as things are changing. Because the past 6 months, even looking back to November when the election happened, it's like, it's not even the same at all. The world's not the same at all. And that's not very long. So yeah, Uranus coming into Gemini, it's going to be pretty sudden. And the Mars square Uranus is kind of the exit of Uranus and Taurus going into Gemini, which will then trine Pluto.
Have either of you seen Mission Impossible, the one that
Hell
just came out?
I haven't seen the new one.
Not the new one, the first one. Yeah.
Okay. No, so this last one is all about AI and where it goes, what it does, all of that. And I would have loved for you to have seen it. Yeah. I watched it last night, and it's fascinating to me. And then when you know that the Pentagon has a movie budget, and I don't know if Mission Impossible is one of the things that they go on, but I always, knowing now that the CIA and the Pentagon all have hands in filmmaking, I'm always fascinated by the messaging that we get from movies. But I'll just leave it there. People will have to watch.
How does it depict AI though? Is it fearful or what?
Yeah, essentially in this movie. So they're fighting against, what do they call it in the movie? The entity. Because
the entity.
The entity.
That's it. Just the entity.
Yeah, it's become so big. And so it's all about, I'm not going to give anything away, obviously, but it's all
I'm gonna
about
watch it.
this fight against the entity. And I will say, I knew a while ago that a friend of mine was in it and he'd been off shooting it. I was like, okay, great. Completely forgot. And I'm sitting in the cinema last night and he pops up on my screen. He's one of the main characters. I'm like, oh, I forgot you were in it.
That's funny. That's funny.
See, a Uranian surprise already.
Yeah, so that was fun. No. But it's a great movie. It's without any of the we'll just say woke messaging that many people are getting tired of.
Was there a lot in that movie?
What do you mean?
Was there a lot of woke messaging?
No, there was none. And this is why, and I find with all of Tom Cruise's movies, so back in whatever 2021, 22, when Top Gun 2 was released, walked out of that and I really enjoyed it. My friend that I went with hated it. And when we walked out, I said, that was so great. He goes, oh, that was terrible. And I said, do you know why it was so great? There was zero woke messaging. And it was like going back to the old days of cinema where you got to go and just go for a great ride, an adventure with these people. There was action, there was all the things. And to me, this is a Tom Cruise thing. I think he has a lot of control over his movies. And so that's one of the reasons why it's so great to go and watch him act.
Yeah, he's the man. I love Days of Thunder. I still watch. I love NASCAR. For the people who don't know, I love NASCAR. I love racing.
I mean, people always try to critique Tom for the Scientology aspect. Yeah. But honestly, look at how his life is. I mean, look at how successful he is. Look at the messaging that he's putting out. And usually it's not bad, right? It's not damaging.
I would say anything, it's good.
Yeah. But I would say, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I had hoped to see it, but people in my house would not go with me.
Oh, really?
I wanted to go see Final Destination, and
I'm good.
I wasn't.
I will not watch stuff like that.
I'll go see it, but no, I kind of didn't want. I wasn't in the mood. But no, what I was going to say is that what I hope it has is a hopeful message or some sort of message that's not just doom and gloom about AI. Like, that's the thing that I worry that people will be so fearful of AI that they won't learn to use it, which everybody will need to do. Yeah. And if we are in this new young world, I think people should have, we shouldn't be naive, right? We should be aware of what's possible. And we just lived through the most controlling phase of astrology, I think. So let's not continue to absolve ourselves of having to do anything with AI. We need to learn how to use it for what we're already doing, or it can be used to control us, right? So,
which we did see some of that in the Big Beautiful Bill. There's some things in there that's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like some things where it's all about AI, and there's some things that are in there about AI that I'm like, man, I don't like that. I don't want to succumb to that, which I hope, you know, gets pulled out in the end. But the whole Oracle thing, you know, what's his name? Larry Ellison, and the whole Oracle, whatever, and Sam Altman and all the AI guys. It's like, they're like it's like a new class. And that's what I really, I hate to use the word fear, but when we're talking about Pluto, it is about fear, and the fear of AI and technology, where if we're too fearful of it, this is where the dark side of Aquarius starts to come through. In a very Hunger Games kind of way, where it's like two-tier system. People who are in it and people who, you know, don't get it and who are, you know, left behind almost, where that's like the biggest fear with Pluto and Aquarius, honestly.
I was speaking to a lawyer friend. So one of my issues with AI is there are people in control of it. So there is a certain amount that they can dictate. That's my concern with it. With that being said, I was speaking to an attorney friend of mine, and she recently went through some changes, personnel changes within her company. And she said, in the old days, I would do everything old school way. We look everything up in books, she said. And I was devastated when some of these changes were happening. However, it's opened me up to this whole new realm. I've got multiple assistants, but they all use AI. And she said, I took some convincing, but ultimately she said, it has transformed how I work. She said, but because I'm old school, I still have the ability to go into a library and look things up and look up cases, all of that. And she said, so for her, it's the greatest invention ever, but you need to have the balance. And I think this is where, as humanity, we're going to need to find that, I guess, that balancing point or that equilibrium to be able to go, okay, we can use this tool for good and amazing things, but we can't rely on it solely because we need to have these other abilities as well.
Right.
And this is where the Libras are going to be so important for Saturn and Neptune and Aries to reflect that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think that I would hope that people are aware of it, but I feel like the need for storage is going to shift towards, we need places for data.
Right.
And we don't, and things like books or actual hard copies of records would be the things they'll say, we can just digitize those, we don't need this. But there really has to be something in place that is going to make sure we are recording and keeping the actual law, because we can see already, during the times where everybody was locked down at home. Do you remember what newspapers became like at that point? I don't know if anybody else was reading them, but
No.
it looked to me like they were already writing stories with AI. It was sort of like nobody's in the building anymore. We're phoning it in, but it was also just, it was not news anymore. It was opinion, and it wasn't who, what, where, why, whatever. But see, I have a background learning all of those things in journalism. It wasn't anything like that. It suddenly became opinion, and nobody was actually fact checking, with actual facts. But then we had the fact checker class emerge, and that's not going to go away. It will always continue. So I feel like we really need a good system in place for keeping the actual data, not opinion, not the interpretation of the data. People can do that, but that's what gets lost in my experience with AI. You have to learn, you have to know how to ask it the right questions, or how to do things for you based on your working knowledge of a discipline. Like in astrology, if you don't know, when it goes haywire, I was using that not too long ago, and it was giving me, my rising sign was Capricorn, and it was arguing with me about it. And I'm like, no, it's
Which
not.
one, Grok or ChatGPT?
Yeah, just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not accurate yet. And I know David's working on his, so that's pretty cool. I'm excited to see how that grows. But two things I want to respond to, because Natalie said something and said something that hit me. Like the whole thing with the legal stuff, like I'm going through some music stuff. That was this situation that I'm going through with some music stuff is the first time I've used AI. And I swear to God, it sounds so lame, but I felt what it was giving me. It was like, maybe this is very Neptunian too, where I was like, it was a novel experience. It almost felt like a spiritual experience. I was feeling something spiritual in a way that I couldn't explain, that this entity was giving me information that in 2 split seconds of such dense, complex things that lawyers go to school to study and pass the bar, which is one of the most difficult professions to actually get degrees in. Medical doctors and lawyers, like that's very difficult. And it was really amazing what it could do. And even for, my attorney and lawyer who I'm working with, like, for her as well, she said the same thing you said, Natalie. It was the same thing. I was like, wow. And then for Anne, what you said something too about storage. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and my business partner, because, we own the music that we create, even with other artists, and we own the master files of this stuff. The master file is not like the recording of the song. The master file is literally the file on the hard drive in the program you record it into, right? Back in the day when it was tape, the actual reel of tape was the master. And I've been thinking, I'm like, I think about all the old records that are on Spotify and on streaming now that were probably transferred from tape to digital, that those tapes were lost in a fire. I don't know if you guys heard about that. It was like maybe 10 years ago, Universal, their whole thing caught on fire and burnt all the masters. All the Prince's masters gone. Michael Jackson, all of them, all the old gone. Right? So I think about that, and then I think about, you know, growing up when I was first making my recording. My first record is like we would record them and send them off to get CDs pressed, and you spend like $5,000 to get like 1,000 CD. I don't know, that wasn't the right math, but still, it was before streaming, and now there's nothing physical. We just upload the stuff to the internet. We have no physicality of it other than the files we have on our computer. And so I'm thinking about storage. I'm like, okay, well, what if we do have worst case scenario, Pluto in Aquarius, a blackout, or all of a sudden all the data gets crushed, or the files are gone. You know, imagine Spotify goes down and they have no way of recovering any sort of music files of centuries or over a century of recorded music history. And for myself, what I've been doing, especially like things on X, because this is where my dystopian brain comes in, because I love dystopian stuff a lot, which is where we also don't want to buy into the fear of Pluto in Aquarius. But at the same time, especially I'm a dad, I have kids. I really care about the future a lot. And every video I see on X or on the internet where I'm like, this is valuable info, I download it and I immediately transfer it to 2 hard drives. And at this point, I have like thousands of just stupid videos of things that I feel like are important, that if I was dead and gone and my children were to open these files of information that was lost, that it's still there for, you know, the people. Because I think the biggest thing throughout history too is, you know, the Library of Alexandria being destroyed. It's like that now, all of that stuff, you know what I mean?
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, that's the thing, that's something I think about, because those libraries can be destroyed by people who conquer. I mean, that's what would have happened in the ancient world.
Yep.
You conquer a civilization, you want to start a new way of life, you destroy their records, right?
And they forget.
Yeah, and then gradually people forget, or you tell them, oh yeah, we made this translation for you, here you go, it's all there. But then if you compare, you always see it's changed. And so, you know, that's my worry with AI also, or with digitizing everything, with the digital world. But I have students now, or had students this last group for the first time, where when I asked them to do research, some of them didn't even think about a book at all. In the past, I've had students who don't think about the library and they would buy books. And I would say, but there's this whole free place to go get all of the books and archives and everything you could want. And now I have students who just, if it's not available somehow digitally, they don't do it. Right. And I've been thinking, I kind of want to do videos on, this is the library, look at how to find books. Because then the other thing is that you like Kindle saying that you're not going to be able to download the books anymore, right?
You can only I think they want to change it so you can only get it. I think this is correct, that you can download it to get it on your Kindle, but you can't put it on any other device. You can't put it on your computer. You can't store it. Wow. But see, this is why with my book, so you guys can all see I've got one bookcase here. I've got another one to the right of me. I've got another one to the left. And even though I'm planning on moving out of this place within 9 to 12 months, I'm still thinking, like, can I put shelves up mount shelves on the wall so I can fit more books? And my whole logic is digital records can always be altered. And I mean, Anne, you were talking about translation. We've translated everything. It's all fine. But if I buy the hard copy, and there are a bunch of books, so a girlfriend wants me to read, I think it's Ride the Pale White Horse or something to that effect.
I've heard
of that. That book was banned for a number of years. And when they put it back into print, they took 26 pages out.
Yep.
because that's
That's
bad.
exactly what I was getting to is
Yeah.
if you don't have an actual copy, even when they print new editions, right? They're always printing new ones. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to have a record of the actual thing. So if you can't even download it to your own computer, like what Kindle did, then you don't have the original information. And this happens all the time,
It's
where
the same
someone in
with
power is offended or doesn't like that something's in a book, and so they change it.
It's the same with chickenpox and measles episodes in Friends and on the Brady
Oh,
Bunch. They take it out because they don't want to see that people weren't panicked
Wait, say that
about
again? They're removing like kind of propaganda from previous episodes.
episodes. It's not propaganda. It's showing how people reacted to those viruses coming forward. Like
I
kids,
saw that and it was like, oh, no big deal.
yeah,
That thing,
because
I saw that. Yeah,
because
yeah.
it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And now they act as if it's a death sentence. And this isn't to start a whole argument, but my point is that they can digitally change all of this. Another really stupid example is Will and Grace, the TV show. I love that show, the original, not the remake or the reboot. It was terrible.
That was a
But
classic American show.
right? And it's
Yeah.
so funny and groundbreaking for so many reasons. And to this day, I watch it and I laugh. But there was a scene, because I have the DVDs, which I bought a million years ago. And there's one episode that I clearly remember where after Grace marries Leo, who is Harry Connick Jr., the next morning they obviously haven't gone to bed and they're walking through Central Park and someone makes a comment and says, oh, you're married. And she holds her hand out and she says, you could see this thing from space, talking about her engagement ring. It's such an insignificant thing. But if you watch it on streaming, that scene is removed. And do you know what I mean? It's not significant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the storyline at all, but on the DVDs, that scene is there. And I still remember the song that they play when this scene happens. And so this is why I have never gotten rid of the DVDs that I own. It's why when I buy books, especially things that are groundbreaking, I always buy a hard copy so that if they change anything in the digital versions or whatever, I can still go back and say, here it is. So my question for you would be, astrologically, there's obviously a swing in regard to technology and AI and all of these things. And I also think when Uranus moves into a new sign, it always comes in with a bang or leaves with a bang. I don't know whether it's the entrance or the exit, but Uranus lets everybody know, hey, I'm moving and you're going to feel this. Is there a pendulum shift where it swings really hard one way and it sort of comes back to balance out? Or do we go into this extreme and it's more that we adjust to it and find ways around it?
I never thought about that, but I feel like the last thing you just said resonates, where it's like, okay, and that's very Uranian, where it's like a sudden bang and then you ease into it and then you understand it. And of course with Saturn, Uranus ruling Aquarius and traditionally being ruled by Saturn, I think that's the Saturnian element of Aquarius is, being able to break outside of that. So I think, the pendulum swinging side of things, maybe it's a pendulum, but I mean, let's think about the Fukushima situation with Uranus coming into Aries after the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at that time. It was like, bam, to the moment, March, I think it was in March 2011 that happened. It was almost to the day. And, I'm trying to think of what happened in 2018 that occurred. That would bring up Uranus moving into Taurus, but I mean, we know what happened in the late 30s and the 40s, or in the early 30s. So, with Hitler coming to power, it was like, whoa, it was a complete shock. And then, he declares war on the Jewish people, blah, blah, blah. And then people eased into it, but it was like, and then Uranus came into Gemini. And then there's to me where the pendulum swings is that Uranus and Gemini historically, at least in our culture and what we've grew up in, and that seems where the pendulum seems to kind of start swinging towards the up. Because if we look at World War II, that's when America became a superpower. So what does that mean now? Everything that, Trump is trying to do and all of this is like, oh, this is the golden age, which I don't know how much that is to be true, which when we talk about this is something, if we end up discussing the planetary nodes, that we could get into, which we were talking about. But, I think I'll just say it. Me and Ann were talking about the planetary nodes, and we were going over that Jeffrey Green video, and Neptune's north node is at 10 degrees of Leo. So here in the next few years, Pluto is going to oppose the north node of Neptune. And the north node of Neptune's been there in Leo for a very, very long, hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Like the nodal axis of, the outer planets take a long time to change. And when I look at that, I'm like, okay, Pluto's about to oppose that. We're here in this golden age, blah, 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 into this AI world. And Uranus coming into Gemini, and we already know the world is going to shift as it did in 1941, in that whole era that got us to now. That era is how we got here, in my opinion. Our economy after the United States selling weapons to Europe to, fight Germany and fight the Axis powers. It was that money that we collected that allowed us to shape what the Pluto and Leo people, the Pluto and Leo generation, kind of brought to us. And we've kind of been playing out Pluto and Leo's kind of vision, the John Lennons and the Jimi Hendrix, those people that we put on a pedestal as these people. But when I look at the north node of Neptune, it's at 10 degrees of Leo right now. And it's like Hollywood's crumbling, all of that, and that illusion, things are definitely being exposed now. But I think over the next 5 years, when Pluto hits about 10 degrees, that's when we're going to see some of the most extreme shit when it comes to what the Pluto and Leo generation left, with the north node of Neptune and Leo and Pluto opposing that. It's like the exposure isn't over. I think over the next 7 to 10 years is going to get really real with that, and waking up to, okay, how am I going to express my true identity without like falling into the illusion? Because that north node Neptune and Leo is like, it is the Hollywood actor, it is the rock star, it is the, and it's Neptunian, where it's woo, now you see me, now you don't kind of thing, and don't look over here. So it is like these people who we put on a pedestal in a very Leo way with that north node of Neptune, where there's more deception than I think we can really understand. And with that pendulum coming, with Uranus and Gemini, it's just one thing after another. More exposure after more exposure. And Pluto making a trine to Uranus, I think, is going to be so helpful to everybody being able to receive the information, because there's so much deep stuff that's coming out that's shocking people. But I think Uranus and coming into Gemini is going to help people actually be able to digest the more difficult things. Because Neptune and Pisces, it's just, leave me alone. I don't want to hear about it. I just want to go smoke out and, watch my favorite show. Now it's like people are going to be ready to receive the information, I really feel. And I feel like, too, people might all of a sudden have a shift of their ability to receive that kind of information, where we're like, oh, I can't really handle certain things. I think that's going to shift big time.
That makes sense. Yeah. I was watching the video of the House committee continuing its investigation of the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
And
he's a Gemini, so damn.
Some pretty shocking stuff, I think, has come out about that, and just really even the culture of the CIA. So it's really interesting. There's a man who was testifying, who has a book also, and maybe Natalie will remember his name, but he was the first African-American CIA Secret Service agent, and he's testifying in this. Now, I was watching it on Forbes, maybe. When it came to that part, this guy was remote, and there was this big hum that came over it, so you couldn't hear what he was saying. So I was like, that's horrible. Like, really? We can't hear this man? So then I went to the House's website and found the video there. And there is a hum, but you can hear what he's saying. So no one on YouTube who's watching that version of it is seeing the actual video. And he's saying things about like Lyndon Johnson and his treatment and just some pretty crazy stuff that seems like people who care about equity would want to hear about, but it's not. So I just feel like there's this pretty shocking stuff out there and people aren't listening. So I think what you're saying is maybe they're just not ready to absorb it right now, but they will be.
I think so. I think Pluto and Uranus trining is going to help, people logically be able to look at things from both sides instead of it just very Neptune and Pisces, like everything is everything and my feelings are everything and everything is my feelings thing. It's like not being able to separate that. It's hard to separate. And I'm 12th house sun. I'm a 12th house Mercury. Natalie's laughing and she got a lot of Pisces in her chart. Like I am that way where, I can very much just escape and keep moving along. But I don't think that's it. We're not even going to be, it's not that we're going to be not allowed to do so, but I feel there could be some, I just say the word karma, but maybe some karmic backlash when it's just like putting up the blinders. Maybe it was acceptable with Neptune and Pisces. Maybe it was meant to be that way. Maybe from a fourth dimensional perspective or from a God perspective that we had to go through that and put the blinders up and just to get to here. So, I really hope that, well, I mean, we could see it too. I'll say this, like I was never on Twitter on X until the past few months. I didn't know what that world was. Now I'm like, oh my God. And then I go to Instagram and it's like, I'm just like looking at cotton candy and unicorns on Instagram. And then when I go to X, I'm like, oh, this is like real shit. Like people, obviously trolling one another, but that's just where, it's the Wild West, and there's people on Instagram too, putting up a blind eye to like, I remember, honestly, this was a couple months ago. I shared something on my astrology page because I have a personal page and astrology page. I keep the music and the astrology separate, but I shared something from X and somebody responded to it and DM'd me. They're like, hey, you should really be careful where you get your information from. I was like, I guess this is why I don't get my information from Instagram, because it's hard to be on X and it's hard to receive some of the shit coming through there because it's everything, every possible, there's people going full blown Nazi on there. There's people going, in every direction. And that's okay. In my opinion, I think it's totally fine. And two, I think, of course, with Elon keeping that up and, upholding free speech and all that kind of good stuff, we're going to be seeing that attacked more and more and more and more and trying to control it and trying to manipulate it. And when we were talking about the digital stuff and the AI and you were talking about the Will and Grace show and how they were trying to change, I'm just like, what is the Mandela effect actually? Like, is it AI? Has AI been around this long? And it's just like, now they're like totally, that was a whole Neptune and Pisces thing where it's like, oh, that's the strangest thing ever, which there is some validity. I swear to God, it was Bearstein Bears, not Berenstein Bears. Like, I read those books in kindergarten every day. You know what I mean? So it seems like that level of control, I hope, can be decentralized in some sort of way.
The Mandela effects are wild. And there was a girl who I was following on TikTok. She seems to have disappeared. She reappeared at one point, but she was talking about the Mandela effects and she was talking about fruit of the loom.
Oh, yeah.
And so she goes down this rabbit hole and she said, I know that it used to have a cornucopia. They're telling us it didn't. And Fruit of the Loom came out and said, here are all of our logos that we've ever used. There has never been a cornucopia. So she went digging and she found an old shirt that was Fruit of the Loom that still had the tag on it, as in how they press them onto the fabric. And it has the cornucopia. So then the question becomes, and she kept saying, I hope they sue me, because if they sue me, we have to do discovery. And at that point, we get to see their records and we get to see everything. And so she came out with this shirt and then everything went silent. But when she found the shirt, she said, so to me, this proves that they're actively lying to us it never existed. This was never a thing. This was never a thing. So there is this mind control element going on.
Yep.
I was laughing when you were talking about people living in their bubble, because I've got people in my life, and I'm a curious being. Anyone that is on Highvibe and watches Full Disclosure knows there is no topic that is off limits, and we believe in free speech, having the discussion, and just being able to ask the questions of what is going on. David and I don't always have the answers, but we're happy to go down rabbit holes and try and get to the truth. And if the truth comes out months later, we'll talk about
Usually
it again,
does.
right? But I have friends of mine and people in my family that don't want to hear. It does not matter what proof I have, what I can show them, that this is going on or that's going on, or this is the deeper issue. And they go, no, 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 no. And one girlfriend in particular, and I love her so much, but she just says to me, I have to exist in my bubble. I cannot live in the world that you're talking about. And so we have an understanding that if she has questions about something, she comes to me and says, tell me about this. So I start, and once I get started, it's very difficult to stop me. And we hit a certain point and she goes, all right, I'm done. That is as much as I can absorb right now. Thank you so much. I had no idea. I'm like, great. And so I leave her with it. I've got family members that will argue with me as if they know information on a particular topic, even though they'll admit they've never read books. So let's use the CIA as an example. Never read books, haven't read any of the declassified documents, know nothing about the functioning of the CIA, but will tell me I'm actively wrong. And I've had to learn to just bite my tongue, because I can see that they're not ready to receive that information. So you talking about astrologically, people being in a place to receive this information is so exciting for me.
Yes.
Because my whole thing has always been, don't you want to know? I know it's scary, but if we know, then if we work together, we can change how this all plays out. If you all sit there with your head in the sand and there's a couple of us jumping up and down saying, hey, pay attention to this, it's never going to work. And so for me, it's very exciting at the change that might happen in the world if people do actually start paying attention to things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So how about switching to, this feels really, really, I don't know, superficial, but let's talk about Jupiter.
Oh yeah, of course we have to.
Let's talk about Jupiter. What's it doing? What's going to happen with that?
Well, I mean, we actually kind of left it out of the whole story.
We were all on the big, heavy outer planets. So
yeah, let's get some optimism back in here with Jupiter.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, to be real, it's going to square Neptune. It's going to square Saturn. And let's just throw into it that Uranus ingress here, like in Pluto. Neptune and Saturn are also going to sextile to Pluto and sextile to Uranus. So there is this like individual awakening in this test that Saturn is calling us. And of course, on a spiritual level with Neptune, and the information that's coming through, and it's deep, 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 deep stuff that like we're all connected to with Pluto, and connecting humanity to allow to transmute that and transmit it. And Pluto transmutes. It mutates and allows it to become a new form. And there's going to be a new form of communicating. The podcast thing was a very Neptune Pisces thing. What's the next thing going to be? There's going to be something new when it comes to that. Because as we can see now, it's like all the podcasters are political people too. The Rogan, there's a lot of that subtlety coming in through the podcasters. But with Jupiter in Cancer, I will say I've heard a lot of people on the internet or the TikTok astrology world or whatever, it's like, oh, there's gonna be a baby boom, this and that. And of course, with the biggest discussion too, I think is important to me. I take this very deeply, is the birth rate. And everybody, now people like Elon, he's like, this is the biggest thing I'm actually concerned about is the birth rate. And it's true. Like we saw with all the COVID stuff, the vaccine. Can I say that on YouTube? Is it cool? All right. Because I know, some people don't want to say that word on YouTube, but I mean, we've seen how that's now affected the reproductive system and the infertility. You know, was it the spike protein or was it the vaccine? I mean, it was both. But that's going to be an issue. And me and Ann, we were talking about the planetary nodes of Saturn and Pluto. And this is what Jeffrey Green was talking about in that video with, you know, Pluto and Saturn being the north nodes of Pluto and Saturn being in Cancer. And it's like, wow, if we look at that decline with Pluto opposing that the past 15 years, the decline of the birth rate, the decline of people willing to have babies, you know, Jupiter's going to cross that 19-degree mark of where the north nodes of Pluto and Saturn are in Cancer. So I think there's going to be a whole lot more to this story when it comes to children and fertility and birth rates. And I think it's a deeper thing than just, oh, there's going to be a baby boom. You know, Neptune and Saturn's going to square Jupiter, where I think where that square that's building is even bringing on the discussion about it. You know, we're seeing the discussion happen and even the information that is coming out about fertility and the vaccine and all that stuff, you know, is useful information to move forward. But I think the real challenge is like individual sovereignty and like what's good for our security. You know, what's truly good, because if we're not having children, we're not going to be secure as, you know, a society and a civilization. And we know all these corrupt people on this planet who have slyly said, oh, if we do really well with vaccines, it'll be really good for the population. I know everybody's seen that video of that TED Talk. And it's like, what do you mean? We know, and it's obvious now what that means. The double speak that we've been experiencing. If you go look at all the Bill Gates talks and all the clips that are now exposed, it's like the double speak. So I think with Jupiter and Cancer on a big level, you know, people are going to be wanting to find security in a much more like the way we haven't had in a long time, where people have put, you know, like the whole feminism thing. I'm not going to knock people's whatever, but it's like, that's been a thing where it's like, oh, I don't want to have babies. I just want to have a career, this and that. Or, you know, now it's to a point where it kind of matters, you know, with the younger people coming in. And, you know, my 4-year-old, he's Pluto Capricorn. So I think with the Pluto Capricorn kids too, as they're getting older, I really feel like those kids who are Pluto Capricorn babies right now, I feel like that's when we're going to see the upswing of, you know, people having more children, focusing more on that kind of stuff. But with Jupiter and Cancer, like it's like with Neptune and Saturn, it's like we have to fight for that. You know, we also have to be willing to accept the information that some of this shit's really hard to swallow, that we accepted it and we went along with it and it was happening. You know, but I think for people too, on a more Jupiterian note, it's like it's got to be more than just an idea. You know, it's got to be more than, oh, wow, what if we did this? Because Jupiter is more like, oh, what if this could happen? You know, it's like we have to learn from the mistakes. And I think with Jupiter and Cancer squaring Neptune, it's like we have to learn from the mistakes that we've made based on our security of how we, you know, handle ourselves as just our basic needs, you know, 4th house stuff, just the basic shit to survive. You know, it's very 2nd house too. But you know, it's those kinds of things, and it comes down to security. And with the nodes of Saturn and Pluto, with that Uranus Neptune in the 90s, that was fully attacked. And we see now it was the 90s kids who were getting vaccinated, who were being put on Adderall, all this crazy shit, who were having fertility issues, who are getting older, younger than they should. You know, the Uranus Neptune Capricorn kids. You know, it's like, you see the younger people now, it's like, you know, 30-year-olds are getting gray hairs, and, you know, women are infertile by the time they're in their late 20s. And it's like, that's a lot of people who, and those were Pluto Scorpio kids too. So we talk about like the sexual trauma as well with the porn industry and all this shit, which is also another extension of that. And the Pluto Scorpio kids who do have Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn going through Jupiter and Cancer, like it's going to set up this whole thing for the Pluto Scorpio kids, where we're going to be going through our Pluto square, which is really going to be activating, like, holy shit, like, all the deep stuff that was ingrained in us as, early 90s kids, being raised, because we were like the kind of the guinea pigs. We were getting insane amounts of vaccines and being put on medications before we could even make decisions. We had porn at our fingertips, where the parents were off working. We could just, and all of those kinds of things. And Jupiter coming into Cancer, squaring Neptune and Saturn, it's like, those are the hard tests for people to like really look at and be like, okay, like, do I want to focus on my identity, or I really want to focus on expanding my security beyond just my own self? But two, it's like, in the new world, how do we balance that? And I think that's where the Libra people are going to be coming in and bringing that, is how can we balance our own unique identity and how fast things are changing, but also with how we can expand to have greater security in our lives, and also not put ourselves first, like we have in this condition that we've been conditioned in of separation. I don't want to have family. I'll do my own thing. I'll do my own career. And then now I think younger people are more miserable than ever, being alone, only focusing on their career. And then it leads to places like this where like the world changes so fast, where it's like a whole new perspective that it's really uncomfortable. And I'm saying these things out of someone too who fell into it. And now I'm like, I'm thinking way differently about these things. Not just because I have kids, but just in general, even looking at the astrology, it's like, wow.
I know we have to finish up, but
yes, I went on forever.
But you've said something that's kind of triggered. So I want to ask one last question, and we can't stay on it for too long.
Yep.
But talking about the whole porn industry and kids, especially your generation, having porn at their fingertips. I'm crazy. Older than you. So our generation were finding brothers and fathers, porn stashes on VHS or DVD.
Yeah, that was fine. That was acceptable.
Well, I think because you had to be older to go finding it, whereas when it's online and it's so easily accessible. But my question goes to the whole OnlyFans thing at the moment, and the fact that so many men and women, but predominantly women, are happy to do essentially sex work, but through the OnlyFans platform. And in the last year to sort of 18 months, we've seen this rise in women trying to beat each other about how many men they can sleep with on any given day.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's a problem. But is there something astrologically going on there? And do you see an end to this sort of trend at all?
Whew,
or is that too big a question?
Yeah. Wow. Pluto, like I said, Pluto's in Aquarius, and it's going to be squaring where Pluto was in Scorpio. And the people, like, these porn stars you're talking about, a lot of them are Pluto and Scorpio people, and Pluto Sag too, the younger ones. But the ones you're talking about, they're older, and I think, that industry was a Pluto Capricorn industry. That was a Neptune Pisces industry. So is that going to last longer? I don't know. Is Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn and Neptune really going to help people, like, in an uncomfortable way, really look at themselves and their identity and, where they identify sexually as well? That was a whole Chiron and Aries thing that is going to come up too. We could talk about so much, but there's so much to it. But I don't know. Uranus coming into Gemini, though. This is the other thing. It's like people experiment. People are willing to experiment a lot more. I don't know. I think maybe it could be very Black Mirror. Have you seen that Black Mirror episode with the two guys who were married and they're homies, and they wear the VR set and they end up like having like gay sex through their VR set? And it's like this whole thing. Like, I just think what porn is and what that is and how that's programmed culture, like, it's going to get worse in ways, I think, with did I say AI? I meant VR, virtual reality, like shit like that, where people are like falling in love with a freaking chatbot or some, GPU that's like projecting some programmed personality, where, people fully going into Neptune and Aries and just completely isolating themselves. I think that's going to be a big thing. But yeah, Jupiter in Cancer could be a big opportunity to really expand our population. I'll say that.
How it will be done, it may not be done the traditional way, how we expand it either.
That's true. And then, the whole IVF or the, how do you say it? The
In vitro.
Yeah. Is sex even going to be a thing of procreation? I think we'll see people completely run from it, and we'll see people just go into their little communities in the woods and just live that out. But it's going to be the other way too, where 15-minute cities and, nobody having sex. So no, I'm just kidding. I don't want to leave it like that. I don't want to leave it like that.
That's just fun world you're imagining for us.
What a time to be alive. Do you know what? It actually is exciting because
it's exciting. Yeah.
Moments like this define generations. And I think it's moments like this that really make the history books later on. And so to be a part of it and to be a part of change and to be a part of the light worker community, I think is incredibly exciting, because I know that our movement is getting bigger and stronger and all of that. And I think that as more people join us and as we come together, I think there's going to be some incredible change. So
absolutely. And as the Matrix attacks the spiritual community and astrology, as it has been lately, don't give up. Don't give up on that.
It's where we have to.
Because it's coming. It's going to get worse too.
All right. So I know you've watched some of these episodes, so you know the 4 questions that are coming at you, but we're asking them anyway.
Cool.
So what makes you laugh?
What makes me laugh? Wow. Like, I've never really thought about this because I have Saturn on my midheaven. Like, I can be too serious. Like, I have a great sense of humor, but my sense of humor is so it's not for the internet. Like the most like effed up things make me laugh. Honestly, not like disgusting stuff, but like just like Kanye West going full Nazi makes me laugh. That's what makes me laugh.
Dark humor.
That's a better way to say it. Yes, dark humor. Yeah.
Oh, and number 2, I'm sitting here waiting for the next question. I'm going to ask it. So who was or is, I guess I should say, your biggest spiritual influence?
Biggest spiritual influence? I'll say David Palmer is probably the greatest influence on me as learning astrology in the world. Absolutely. He's the best. Jeffrey Green, when it comes to those 2 people astrologically have absolutely been the people who have shaped and I've looked up to the most for sure. Lately, it's been Jesus. I've been, I'm not going Christian, but I'm just saying, like, I think Jesus was the first punk rocker, and I think I'm starting to figure that out. So lately, I'm like, wow, I'm punk rock. Like, he's punk rock. Like, he's been inspiring lately, and not in a biblical way. Just in like, oh shit, that energy is coming through right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have been saying that to me, just personally. It's very, very interesting.
But I could never define it before. I never even thought about it. I never was like, oh, Jesus, blah, blah. Now I'm like, I think I'm getting it. I think I'm starting to understand.
And what would your advice be to people on how to transcend fear?
Whew. That's the hardest thing. I had a very harsh upbringing, so my ability to deal with difficult things is a little bit not normal, sadistic in a way. Like, I can deal with pain. I can deal with a lot of difficult shit. But I think putting yourself in difficult situations and not running from them and learning from them, I think, of course, the fear is what inhibits people from taking on things. But I think when you actually work through things and you actually put in the effort and you just deal with it, you come out on the other side, actually learning from it instead of it doing you in. I don't know how to deal with fear. That's a good question. I've never, ever thought about these things. I don't even know how to put it, honestly. How do I deal with fear? I don't even know how I deal with it, other than, I don't know. I don't want to go out and be like, I'm fearless. But like, it takes a lot to really put me in a place of true fear. Because nothing in the world that we're talking, that's the thing. All the hardcore stuff that we've discussed, or you guys discuss on Full Disclosure, or whatever, all the stuff you see on X, I'm not in fear of any of it. I don't look at the astrology and say, oh, wow, Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune. I'm not scared of it. There's no fear. It's like, this is coming, and this is why we use astrology. So we can look at the past, we can look at the present, and we can look at the future and make a critical hypothesis for what these things could be based on the art form and the science and your ability to correlate. I think for me, that's how I deal with fear. I think astrology, honestly. If I didn't have astrology, life would be terrifying. Because that's God. That's how I connect with what I call God. When you understand the perfection of, the cycles of our solar system, just to start there, and when you understand the perfect nature of it, I feel like before I could grasp that a Pluto cycle is 240 something years, or Neptune is 166 years around the sun. Like, we weren't taught these things in school, so we just consider it as everything's just random until you learn astrology and you realize, like, this whole thing is perfect. Whoever created this thing, that creates time by this gravity or whatever, that's, knowing that, it's hard to be fearful of life.
That's a great answer.
I never really thought about it. Thank you for asking these questions.
So one more question.
Okay.
What's the best piece of spiritual advice that you've ever been given?
Just, I'm a 12th house sun in my whole life, I will say, and I don't know if it's come, maybe, yeah. Not only does this advice come from something outside of reality, but from my grandmother and my uncle, who I really look up to. It's like, those are the people that I look at whenever I have to just let go of something or accept something the way it is, and faith, I think, is really it. I don't want to be Christian about that. I'm not a Christian, but it's like, if you're a 12th house sun, or you have Pisces placements, or even collectively the Neptune in Pisces transit we just went through with Saturn, it's like, how much control do we really have over our reality? Not much at the end of the day. We can only put so much in, but we can, Capricorn and Saturn teaches us that we get to the top of the mountain, everything else is beyond our control. So I think faith and just trusting the perfection and the beauty of what we exist in. I think that's it.
Beautiful. Well, Anne has somewhere to be, so we are going to finish this up. Alex, we can't wait to have you back on the show, because I think
I love talking to you guys. You guys are the best.
We could go down 100 different rabbit holes, and in time we absolutely will. As always, thank you to Anne, my wonderful co-host. I love doing this with you each and every episode. And Alex, we will put the link to all the places that people can find you down below so that they can follow you. I know you're reimagining how you're doing your astrology videos, so we can't wait to see.
Astrology in general, just how I want to deliver it, and not just do what everybody else is doing on the internet. Like, it was cool to get the wheels going and, to see if people are going to really, vibe with me with what, I have to say with astrology. But, now it's to a point where I'm ready for something new, and, I'm excited.
Well, we cannot wait to see what comes next and to have you on again very soon. Thank you to everybody who joined us live in the chat. It's been popping off this entire time. It's been amazing. We love having you all here with us. And thank you so much. We will see you for the next episode.
Awesome.
Bye.
See you guys later.